Welcome to Faith in 5, a weekly video devotional designed to discuss practical spiritual concepts in 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Mark Vandella. I remember back in middle school, we used to just pick on each other. We used to pick on anybody that you could. And unfortunately, I remember one person specifically. We were just horrible to this person. We had all these nicknames, and we would just, to be honest, it's hard to say, but we were good at being mean. And at the time, I knew it was wrong. It didn't make me feel good, or maybe it did make me feel better, but certainly not good. I knew it was wrong. And yet I still acted on it. And I got good at I put my character aside, the fact that I knew what was right from wrong, and I still acted in a different way. And I actually bumped into that person a number of years later, and it was on a college campus, so this is 5 to 7 years later. And I'd like to hope, or I'd like to think that I was a way different person than at 18, 19 than I was at 13. And I just felt horrible. I actually bumped into her, and something inside of me says, avoid all eye contact and just walk the other way, but I didn't. I actually walked up to her, and we had a conversation, and I apologized, and she said, I get it, no big deal. But I said, no, it is a big deal to me, because I knew what was right. See, I had this piece of character. Character says, you know what's right. And yet I didn't have the integrity to do anything about it. And so not only did I not have the integrity to do anything about it, I went in the opposite direction of character. And so the dichotomous relationship that we're looking at today is competence, being good at something, knowing how to do something, and character, knowing what is right. And so knowing how to do the right thing and knowing what is right, each of them in themselves are not that useful, but when we put them together, that's when we actually act on what is right. So that's where integrity really comes together. Integrity is a combination of knowing how to and knowing what is right and then actually doing it. So that classic middle school make fun of playground lunch table kind of conversation is a conundrum. Somebody's making fun of Billy or Sally, and we know the right thing to do. That's character. But and not doing something, not acting on it, is also still not necessarily avoiding your character. But that's not enough. Our faith calls us to do the next step, to do something about it, and that's when we apply the ability and the skills, knowing how to do the right thing. Integrity is what we're really looking for. See, James 4:17 says that if you know the right thing to do and you don't do it, that is evil. And I can admit I've done that so many times in my life, and it didn't stop in middle school. All of us are faced with things that we need to do in this world. We see right and we see wrong, and we know and we can identify, but do we do anything about it? In fact, do we know how to do anything about it? One of my favorite leadership podcasts is the Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast. He's a pastor in Canada, and he is doing phenomenal things in training pastors, training church leaders, and also speaking to business leaders on his podcast every week. And one of the things, he was just recently interviewed on his podcast, so he kind of flipped the tables. Instead of him interviewing somebody else, he got interviewed. And he talked about this dichotomy between competence and character. And he says that good leaders know that it's not competence that leads to your capacity for leadership. It's actually character. He says if you're to be without one, be without competence and not character. And I don't disagree at all. But he goes on in that conversation to talk about we do still need to be good at what we do, and that's why he does his podcast. That's why he has a whole leadership training program. Because he said we need to be with our character. We need to develop our character. But not only that, we need to develop the skills to apply it so that our character makes a difference in this world. He said that's leadership. Yes, if you put a gun to my head and told me I had to pick one, I'd pick character all day long. But character often falls short, like it did in my life. I knew what was wrong, but I still did whatever I wanted. I did not know how to engage. I didn't know how, or at least I chose not to. So this week, as you engage your faith, consider the places that you could develop, the places that you could learn more, and that you could actually apply your character by doing something about it so it looks a lot more like integrity. This week's "and" is integrity. Putting the two together is this depth of human behavior that makes us the best us that we can and actually reflects God. So this week, not only develop some of those skills and practice it, try it, do something, engage, but also consider those places where you can really know right from wrong and know how you will respond in those moments so that you aren't left with your character but not competency. And that you don't get too far into the knowledge side without bringing your character along. This week, in your faith, consider both your character and your competence.